Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So there have been some positive developments in the Patrick Lyoya situation. As you will recall, back in April of this year, Patrick Lyoya was killed by a Grand Rapids police officer in Michigan. And this is what happened. He was pulled over. The police say that he had a license plate that did not match the vehicle. An unregistered license plate. So the officer stops him, and when the officer pulls over the vehicle, Patrick Lyoya immediately gets out of the vehicle, and the officer tells him not to. The officer explains to him that his license plate doesn't match his vehicle, and it seems like Patrick Lyoya may not have understood everything that he was saying. So at some point, Patrick Lyoya proceeds to run away from the officer. There's a struggle over the taser at some point during this interaction. And at one point, the officer pins Lyoya down, and the officer is saying, "Let go of the taser." The officer proceeds to point his gun at the back of Patrick Lyoya's head and then shoots and kills this brother, shoots him to death, and it's captured on video. There's a third party that videotaped the incident. Also, there's a body camera of the incident, and there's a security camera of the incident as well, and the dash cam from the police car video as well. I will post a link to the video so that you can watch it for yourself and judge it for yourself. So now the officer who was responsible for killing Patrick Lyoya has been charged with first-degree murder. And so this is a step toward justice, as the family has said, but this in and of itself is not justice. You know, many cases have been filed a lot of times, but that doesn't mean that this officer necessarily will be convicted. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But what you have here is, as many people said, an all-out execution. This brother was executed. This brother was shot again at point blank range, and this police officer basically served as judge, jury, and executioner. And as the local branch of the NAACP said, an unregistered license plate should not be a death sentence. Nobody should die over something like that. And this brother, Patrick Lyoya, did not have to die. He did not have to be killed by this officer. And, you know, I'll get into like some of the arguments that the defense will probably make when this case goes to trial, but this brother didn't have to die. You know, here we have a basic situation where this brother is accused of driving with a license plate that doesn't match his vehicle, and this brother ends up dead. How is it that these mass murderers who shoot up churches, shoot up supermarkets, you know, shooting parking lots and shooting different places, how is it that these people manage to be arrested peacefully? You know, they managed to be arrested without a scratch on their head, without a scratch on their body, without any kind of injuries or anything at all. But a man who is simply driving his vehicle ends up dead simply because he had an unregistered license plate. To make that shit make sense, it doesn't make any kind of sense at all. It's just that black life is treated with very low value. Black life has no value. And it's a shame that here we are in 2022 and we have to tell people that Black lives matter. So this is the situation that we have. And, you know, I'm glad that this prosecutor had the courage to bring these charges because he could have played politics, you know, because I'm sure there are a lot of people that are against his decision, especially given the makeup of that county. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But he could have easily played it safe and said that, you know, this guy was acting in self-defense or whatever and just not pressed any charges. But it's because of these protests that people cannot ignore these cases anymore. They can't brush these cases under sweep these cases under the rug anymore. They can't brush aside Black life anymore, because the people are marching in the streets and they are demanding justice. The people are raising hell. And the thing that they are even more threatened by is the fact that you have a lot of allies joining these marches, joining these demonstrations. It's no longer just limited to one group of people. It is a mass movement. And because of that, these people are looking at these cases more seriously than they would ordinarily. And there's one point that I want to make about this. You know, often here online, you have these debates between, you know, these anti-immigrant African Americans, unfortunately, that had this Donald Trump mindset where they hate immigrants and all that kind of stuff. And they talk about how immigrants have all these privileges compared to African Americans. And then you, on the other hand, you have some immigrants that think they're better than African Americans. They think that they're exempt from racism and all that kind of stuff. They think that racism is just used as an excuse to justify failure and stuff like that. But the truth of the matter is, despite this infighting among Black people, the system of white supremacy doesn't care nothing about these distinctions. The system of white supremacy will exploit those distinctions to divide and conquer people. But at the end of the day, white supremacists and white supremacy as an institution doesn't make these distinctions that we make amongst ourselves. They see the N-word when they see a Black person, regardless of where that Black person is from, regardless if that person is from the continent or from the islands or from Europe or from the States. They see the N-word when they see a Black person. And that's what they saw when they saw Patrick Lyoya. My question is, what even prompted them to run his license plate? What prompted that officer to do so? They saw a Black face and they treated his Black life with like it was worthless. You know, this brother shot and killed point blank range. And in many ways, this mirrors that situation involving George Floyd. The audacity of these race soldiers and white supremacists who masquerade as police officers. You know, they have traded in, you know, the white sheets and they put on these blue uniforms and they're executing our people. And I'm glad that this prosecutor had the courage to bring forth charges. But again, charges alone are not justice. It's a step in the right direction, but we've seen this story before where people bring charges and it's almost like a performance sometimes, or like a circus where they bring these charges for, you know, to appease people, to satisfy people, to throw people some crumbs so they'll chill out and not burn stuff down and not riot and raise all kinds of hell. They do this to appease people sometimes. And I'm not going to say that that's the case here. And hopefully it's not the case. But they do that to appease people. And then at the end of the day, the police walk or the killers walk. You know, we saw what happened here in Baltimore with Freddie Gray. You know, these officers, none of them ended up being convicted. In fact, those officers who created conditions that resulted in this brother Freddie Gray's neck being shattered to the degree that that one of the medical examiners described his neck as feeling like a bag of rocks. Despite that, those officers walked in, and even worse than that, those officers got awards. You know, they received some awards from some right-wing group and stuff like that after killing this brother, Freddie Gray. And we've seen what happened in other cases, like there's not even police cases, but are cases that involve violence against Black people, racist violence against Black people. We saw it with Trayvon Martin. You know, that brother was shot in the heart and his killer was able to walk. His killer not only walked, but he became a celebrity and pimped the death of Trayvon Martin. Pimped the death of Trayvon Martin to make money. He would autograph things, you know, sell paintings and sell the gun, if I'm not mistaken. Profiteering off of the death of Trayvon Martin. That's what we see. So don't take comfort. Don't take comfort in the fact that charges have been brought. That's only the beginning. Keep up the pressure and keep marching in these streets. Because one thing that I'm very concerned about is just the jury pool in that particular county, Kent County, Michigan. We're talking about a county that's 82% white and only 10.6% black. And we know that a lot of times there is a heavy bias towards police officers, a heavy bias. They are often given the benefit of the doubt. They are often given deference and respect, especially among, many white people, because their experience with the police is completely different from the black experience with police. And be prepared for them to demonize this brother, Patrick Lyoya. They are going to demonize him. They're going to pull up all the charges against him. They're going to pull up records against him. They're going to talk about the autopsy report and all that kind of stuff to paint him as the villain, to demonize him, to dehumanize him. So his value as a human being is diminished. Diminished to the degree that a jury can feel comfortable finding, that killer, that murderer, not guilty, even though it's captured on video where this officer, and the officer's name is Christopher Schurr. That officer, they can make these arguments where people will feel like that officer is not guilty. And that brings me to another point, and I'm going to go back to the demonizing and discrediting of the victim in a second. But that brings me to another point, and that's this point about this whole concept that we always hear. It's a few bad apples. It's not, it's not the police as an institution and all that kind of stuff. It's just these few bad actors. They are the problem. But my question is this. If that's the case, why is it that so often in these police brutality cases, why is it that police are the ones defending these killers? Why is it that these police unions regularly rally around these officers who have used excessive force, these officers that have murdered black people? They defend these officers just like they're defending Patrick Lyoya's killer, Christopher Schurr. They are defending that killer. They put out a statement, and I'll post, these articles in the description box to this video so you can read them for yourself. They posted, they said that they stand behind him when this issue first surfaced, when this whole matter surfaced. And as far as I know, after these charges have been filed, I haven't seen a statement from them yet. But before charges were even filed, they were defending this officer. So let's go back to this whole issue of them trying to discredit him. And you actually see glimpses of where this is going in these articles where they talk about the autopsy report and they talk about charges against Patrick Lyoya. Here in this CNN article, they talk about how Patrick Lyoya had 3 outstanding warrants at the time of this killing. They talk about how he had a blood alcohol concentration that was more than 3 times the legal limit. So these are things that are going to be highlighted. They're going to talk about, substance abuse charges against him. They're going to raise all kinds of issues against him to try to discredit him and, dehumanize him and stuff. And we've seen this before. We saw this with Michael Brown and Ferguson. We saw what they did in that situation. And basically, here you had a brother shot and killed by a police officer. His body left in the street for hours with blood streaming and rolling down the street. But they were able to dehumanize him. And no charges were even brought against the officer. They tried to paint him as some kind of savage brute, some kind of monster or something like that. And because of that, no charges were ever brought against him. And I know that there's some controversy about this. So let me go to this other article. And they also, mentioned some charges that were against Patrick Lyoya and his background. And we know that this is going to be brought up. So it's better to, for you all to hear a little bit about it now than to hear about it later. So let me see if this article has information about this. Just bear with me a second. So in this particular article, they talk about like how he fled the scene of a traffic accident and his license was suspended. It talks about how he was arrested for driving while intoxicated. So yeah, they're going to come up with all this stuff against him. That's the bottom line. They're going to come up with stuff. And I know that there was something about his license being suspended for like substance abuse type of issues and stuff like that. So they're going to dig up as much dirt as they can find on him to try to make him out to be the villain and make this police officer out to be some kind of helpless victim. And one thing that was pointed out in one of these articles that I read is that they were talking about how the local civil rights agency had, reached out to the U.S. Justice Department to ask them to do a thorough investigation of the police department to see if there was a pattern and practice of discriminatory policing practices within that agency. So I think that's a very positive development, and we need to see more of that. We need to have these investigations of these police departments to change the discriminatory policing practices that some of these departments have. Because what has happened often, we all know like how these things go. We know the routine. They have the hashtags of the person that passes away. They say justice for this person. You have these attorneys come in and make money off of this suffering. I mean, even though they're bringing attention to the issue, without a doubt, I think it's a role for them. I think they do play an important role. But at the end of the day, they're getting paid as a result of Black people losing their lives. So the family, often reaches some kind of settlement with these police departments. And a lot of times these officers actually get away with the actual killing and no charges are brought against them. And even when charges are brought against those officers and they're convicted in those rare situations, that's just that one officer who is penalized. But it doesn't change the structure of the police department and stuff like that. It doesn't change the discriminatory practices. So you had these attorneys getting rich off of these killings, but nothing is really changing. Nothing is changing in terms of structural, fundamental, institutional change. The only thing that is happening is, and it's good that the families get compensated for their loss and all that kind of stuff, but these issues are bigger than individual families. So it's welcome news that you had a civil rights agency, ask the Justice Department to conduct an investigation. And Joe Biden's Justice Department needs to conduct that investigation. After doing all that pandering to the Black community, let's see you actually implement what you talk about. Let's see if you actually implement those campaign promises that you talked about, those campaign promises of dealing with police reform and all that. I mean, an executive order is good. That's a step in the right direction. But let's see you aggressively use your Justice Department to investigate these racist police departments. So that's what I have to say about that. I'm really interested in hearing from you. So tell me what you think about this situation. Please rate, comment, subscribe, like the video, share the video, and hit that notification bell so that you'll know when I post new content on here, because YouTube is playing games. They don't show all my subscribers the videos. So anyhow, hit that notification bell so you will know when I'm going live, when I'm posting videos. And also, I wanted to let you all know that every Thursday at 10 p.m. I go live on this channel. And usually I go live with my brother, and hopefully we'll continue to do that. And we're going to have other people join the discussion as well. And if you know of YouTubers that you think I would, be great pairing up with, leave their names in the comments. Let me know who you think I should, do a live with. I'm really interested in your opinions. And the last thing I'll say is this: if you like reading great books written by great Black authors, please comment and let me know below, and I will send you what I'm going to do is every month I'm going to discuss a great Black book. I plan to do it through Zoom, and some of the actual discussions I may post on YouTube, but at the very least I will do videos where I do book reviews as well. But if you're really interested in joining great discussions about great books, having great, deep, thought-provoking discussions, entertaining discussions, fun discussions, let me know in the comments as well. And you can also email me at newpossibilitiesblog@yahoo.com. So peace and blessings. Have a great weekend.